Hey, Brad Squad, Jonathan Yo-Yo Elias here. Today, I'm with Hector Rodriguez, an educator, artist, and 10th generation Texan. His comic book series, El Peso Hero, tells the story of a rogue Mexican-American superhero who stands up against cartels, corrupt officials, and human traffickers at the US-Mexico border. Addressing modern social issues such as immigration, human trafficking, and border corruption, El Peso Hero has garnered attention and praise from the Latino community and been featured on Univision, CNN, Telemundo, and countless other media sites worldwide. In the latest edition, El Peso Hero travels to Ukraine to search for a missing Mexican Red Cross member and to protect refugees in the midst of the Russian invasion. Hector, I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, great honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So first of all, tell me about El Peso Hero.
Yes. Well, El Peso Hero is about a vigilante Mexican-American hero in the border of Texas and Mexico. And it's a hero that inspires hope. It's a hero that walks the fine line of the moral ambiguity, especially when it's concerning immigration law or the law that is faced currently. And it deals with a lot of human issues, especially concerning, of course, crime, corruption, and the very sensitive nature of immigration. I've been doing El Peso Hero for over 10 years now.
Wow. So how'd you actually come up with the idea?
Well, it came from an idea of wanting a hero that really spoke to my personal culture, my language, ate the same foods that I ate. When was the last time you saw Batman eat empanadas, or pozole, a reflection of the border culture and specifically between Texas and Mexico. I grew up in the border in Eagle Pass in the sister city of Piedras Negras. And so those border cities, it's a cross-cultural bridge, history, language, culture. And so I really wanted to reflect that into a comic book. And so I felt the urge to create my own. I was not going to wait for anybody else to create my Latino hero. And I put pen to pencil and I started going at it.
So why did you see the need to tell this story?
I had the privilege of growing up in a world where I was exposed to a lot of Mexican cinema, lucha libre. And so, I had larger than life figures, and at the same time, I read a lot of comic books, American comics as well. Mm-hmm. And one comic book in particular that I really enjoyed in the early 90s was Spawn. Todd McFarlane's Spawn, just because it was really cool, amazing having a African-American hero, Al Simmons in the front center of this world. And for me, I was like, wow, I wish I had a Latino, Mexican-American hero that really reflected my culture, my world, that I saw myself in their shoes. And so, and the thing about comics is that majority of the comic book industry, the protagonists are of Caucasian culture. It's gotten better now. Yeah, I can say, for over the past 20 years, it's definitely gotten better now, but we still have long ways to go.
For sure. So now you're also a teacher, correct?
Correct. Yes, I'm an educator for about 12 years in the Dallas area. Uh-huh. I, focusing on bilingual education, and so I definitely draw a lot of experiences. It's really important to have a pulse in your community too. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you humble, and for me, being a teacher is it's a superpower. Being there for the upcoming generation, and as well as making sure that their stories are being told.
Do you actually teach comics or graphic novels in the classroom?
I've used comic books and graphic novels as teaching tools. I've taught grades from 1st to 5th grade, elementary. And so there's different ways. There's a lot of great resources to use comic books, to use graphic novels to betterment and definitely hook young readers and create the upcoming wave of writers and artists.
Let's talk about you being the co-founder of Texas Latino Comic-Con. That's pretty awesome.
It is. It's been a great journey, especially in the past 2 years. Our convention has been virtual, and so we really hope to go back in person later this year. And so we've done Texas Latino Comic-Con for about 5 years now. Oh. And it really was a response towards our community to have that inclusive environment for upcoming creators, in this case of a Latinx background, to have a voice, regardless of where they come from especially with these big conventions, these corporate conventions that do require a lot of funding for you to have a table. There's a paywall for a lot of members in the community to attend. So in this case, Texas Latino Comic-Con has always been free. It will continue to be free.
Nice.
And as well as we try to really have a diverse voice of different backgrounds of, of Afro-Latinos, Latinx, LGBTQ plus community being involved. It's really important for us to have that diverse reflection of ourselves in the books we read.
What really draws you to the comic book culture, and why do you feel it's so important?
Comics have always been part of our world, especially if you look at the Latino history, especially with the ancient Aztec codex, very pictorial, visual, especially going back for the early humans where they used the visual narrative to tell their own stories. And so it's such a powerful tool because you can put yourself in someone else's shoes visually, and you can tell a lot of story with a small panel. And not also that, but our comic books have always drawn from our own social experiences. That's the soul of the comic book. That's the messaging. That's the inherent reflectness of our world through those pages. So it's such a powerful visual narrative that all walks of life can really connect.
So one thing I definitely loved was when I saw El Peso Hero becoming a real cross-border superhero back in 2015 when he took on then presidential candidate Donald Trump. That was awesome. Tell us about that.
We've never taken political stance. We've had fans from both sides of the political aisle. And our stories have always been a reflection of the border environment, regardless of the situation. We were talking about, I was writing about detention facilities when Obama was president and being critical on his immigration policies. And so regardless of our political institution, we always are telling what was right for our community. In this case, we needed to take a stance against the negativity, the toxicness of the up and coming political candidate. And I felt that it was important to pay an homage to Jack Kirby's Captain America punching Hitler in 1942.
Yeah.
And so seeing these Jack Kirby's own experiences against authoritarianism. Also, we were pretty critical in the detention facility, especially how they've taken a really sinister tone when, the separation of children from their families. Also, during COVID, we felt it was very important to stand up for our essential workers. So in 2020, we released a special book called Peso Hero, The Essentials, where we talked about the importance of protecting our frontline workers, our essential workers, our farm workers that have been unprotected. And in this case, Peso Hero takes a backseat to a real superhero, and it's a nurse, while she's distributing masks to our farm workers, the backbone of our food supply. Peso Hero, the biggest thing he does, he pushes a truck that runs out of gas carrying supplies. So that's it. And currently, we felt it was important to take a global stance against the current situation in Ukraine.
I love that. Awesome. Now, why did you decide to make the issue free?
This extreme violence, war, I felt that I need to take a stance against war. I felt that as a Latino superheroes, that we do need to go on to the global stage, that if Superman and Spider-Man are jumping around the world, saving different folks, I think that we as Latinos, as minorities with superheroes, that we do have the right to stand up for other people, not just our own.
Yeah. And I love that you suggest people to donate instead, correct?
Yes, 100%. And so that's why it's free. And my only caveat is if you have the funds, to donate to UNICEF for their own donations for helping children in Ukraine, refugees in Ukraine that are affected by this ongoing invasion.
First of all, that's amazing that you're doing that. I'm sure people out there are super excited and happy for that. That's super, super awesome. So I want to go back to saying, you're saying that no matter what our own experiences, we should have more compassion towards the people currently being displaced in Ukraine, right?
It's having that human compassion, right? And so humans from Central America, being refugees from Central America, fleeing, as well as from Africa, or even our Haitian neighbors, when they were coming in and doors were being shut, I think we need to have more compassion regardless of where they come from. In this case, El Peso Hero is up front center, taking a stance, especially with Mexico's neutral stance with the invasion. I felt that it was important for the Mexican president was not going to stand up. The Mexican superhero, Peso Hero, will.
Nice. So what message do you have for the people about immigration struggles at the border and around the world?
It goes back to hope and compassion, that it's our human spirit, our human nature to look for what's best for our own children, and that to be resilient, because our folks have such high tenacity and rigor, persevering, that it's part of the nature not to lose hope, and to be active in your community, to be the change you want to be in your community.
So what's your own immigration background? I know you're 10th generation in Texas, right?
Yes, and so my family has been in Texas for quite a long time. My father being our local genealogist, we take pride on our heritage, our culture, it being from an indigenous background as well as Spanish. My father's been in the military. I have some great uncles World War II, Vietnam. My grandfather had a great sense of justice, and also he worked in Houston, Texas. From the border, he would go to Houston, Texas, and he would tell us a lot about the awfulness of Jim Crow laws and how, especially seeing those signs, no blacks, Mexicans, Spaniards, dogs are allowed, all these awful discriminative institutional practices. Also within my mom's side, being from Mexico, my great grandfather was a captain cavalry in the Mexican Revolution, and so it's something that makes us humble. It makes us appreciative of our freedoms, that we do have this great freedom of speech, it being comics, literature, that is very important to us to exercise.
So where is El Peso Hero headed next?
Well, currently with El Peso Hero, we had just finished our 10th year arc. And so we're jumping into a new arc coming next year. And it's going to be a really fun book, El Peso Hero, the Sicario War. And so we're dealing with the backlash of what happened in the previous story arc. Ignacio Rivera and Peso Hero is growing.
Now, how can people read El Peso Hero comics?
Yes, you can definitely go to RioBravoComics.com and you can check out the latest book, El Peso Hero Ukraine. It is free, but please donate to UNICEF for their efforts for protecting refugee children.
And Hector, lastly, what's your American dream?
My American dream would be to close income inequality, to close class inequality, provide free healthcare, because we're lagging so far behind, not also healthcare, but as well as mental health care too.
Agreed. Well, Hector, thank you so much for joining us today. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.